For our kinesiology class final, we decided to analyze the differences between the WNBA game between the Minnesota Lynx and the Los Angeles Sparks, and the NBA Finals game between the Cavaliers and the Warriors. Our group consists of Joe Schutz, Trevor Ryan, Joey DeAnda, and Julianna Ziliotto.
Gender marking, as defined by Coakley, is defined as referring to men's events as the events and to women's events as women's events. There is no better example of this than in the sport of professional basketball, where professional male athletes such as LeBron James and Kevin Durant play in the NBA, or National Basketball Association, whereas professional female basketball players such as Maya Moore or Brittany Griner compete in the WNBA, or the Women's National Basketball Association. There is a clear distinction between the two titles of these sports. Both sports contain National Basketball Association, defining that both leagues play the same exact sport, basketball. However, females are clearly separated and distinguished as a sub-league or concept of the NBA, and when referring to professional male basketball players such as Stephen Curry, he is a professional basketball player, whereas Candace Parker is a professional women's basketball player. Many WNBA players and other famous female athletes, such as Serena Williams, have spoken up regarding gender marking in sports, and they have high hopes for a brighter future regarding the titles of sports and labels of professional female athletes. WNBA forward Elena Delle Donne of the Chicago Sky argues for the increasing invisibility on women's sports and how that will continue how that will change the conversation about gender marking. She stated that's the biggest way to get people to speak about the game and our talents, instead of always just being like, oh, a female basketball player? I'm a basketball player. It's funny how they always have to add that. They don't say male basketball player. There are certain things in the media that hopefully one day will change. She is not alone in her desire for change. Serena Williams is a huge advocate against gender marking and believes that language is one of the biggest indicators of sexism in a sport. Serena Williams said, "People call me one of the world's greatest female athletes. Do they say LeBron is one of the world's best male athletes? Is Tiger, Federer? Why not? We should never let this go unchallenged. We should always be judged by our achievements, not by our gender." Female athletes across all sports have spoken up regarding gender marking and sexism within the labels of sports and athletes, yet little has been done to change the titles of many of these major sports. Yet there is some hope. After analyzing the Minnesota Lynx and Los Angeles Sparks game in Game 2 of the NBA Finals that took place on the same day, June 3rd, 2018, both sports broadcasting companies did an excellent job at presenting an equal representation of the sport. The commentators do not participate in the orthodox gender ideology that the rest of the country partakes in, and watching the two sports seems almost identical, which leads to the question, why is there such a clear distinction in the titles of professional sports such as the WNBA and the NBA? And what effects, if any, would it have on our society if in the future the NBA adopted the name MNBA, or Men's National Basketball Association?
Ambivalence is defined as using narratives that recognize and praise sporting skill, but also include comments that trivialize or undermine a woman's identity and powers as a serious athlete. This has been a serious problem in the WNBA since the start in 1996. Female athletes are trivialized based on their gender in almost every sport. The WNBA and professional women's basketball leagues everywhere have been subject to sexism as well. The Liberty Basketball Association attempted to combine sport and sex appeal. The LBA's regulations provided for shorter courts, lowered rims, free throw lines closer to the basket, and most infamously, one-piece lycra unitards for its players. These tight uniforms look like swimsuits and aren't suitable to play in at all. Today's WNBA uniforms model modern NBA uniforms, which are designed for maximum performance. Former Washington Wizards point guard Gilbert Arenas weighed in on the WNBA's uniforms with an Instagram post. His post showed two girls in bikinis playing hoops, and he suggested that the WNBA take note to increase views. In his caption, he wrote, "Now this is what America was hoping for when they announced the hashtag WNBA back in 1996. not a bunch of chicks running around looking like cast members from #OrangeIsTheNewBlack. Don't get me wrong, they have a few #cutie pies. He went on from there to say that arenas would sell out if they conformed to misogynistic views. The WNBA responded to Arenas with a statement saying, Gilbert Arenas' comments are repugnant, utterly disrespectful, and flat out wrong. WNBA players are strong, talented, and determined individuals who give it all on the court and serve as inspiring role models to millions around the world. They should be celebrated for their accomplishments, not disparaged with ignorant insults.
Orthodox gender ideology. It's the interrelated ideas and beliefs associated with a two-sex approach. Using the word orthodox is meant to show that this view of gender represents a traditional and widely established way of thinking, that peoples view this as an unchanging truth, so to speak, linked to their religious beliefs or an overall sense of right and wrong, per Coakley on page 171. But orthodox gender ideology is basically the thought that there's either male or female, that they are different and they each have their own characteristics that they're expected to represent. The WNBA is attempting to break the orthodox gender ideology. 3, 2, 1. Now, the WNBA's perspective has some interesting points, specifically regarding, not directly, but pretty close associated with orthodox gender ideology. I found this WNBA's perspective article from Swish Appeal in 2015. Basically, WNBA president Laurel Richie is quoted as saying, I think society is getting more comfortable with the notion of a female athlete, recognizing them as different, but not less than, referring to male athletes. Here's where orthodox gender ideology comes in, and their fight against it. One of the greatest reasons for this display is the preconceived notions of what roles women and men are supposed to have within a society and how they should represent themselves to the world at large. Basically, that quote is saying, we don't want to follow orthodox gender ideology, and we know that it exists, those preconceived notions. So she goes on to say, meanwhile, the United Nations He for She social media campaign has gained the outspoken support from global leaders, including Desmond Tutu, Prince Harry, and President Barack Obama, who's also a fan and champion of the WNBA and women's sports in general.
Continuing with our analysis of the Minnesota Lynx versus Los Angeles Sparks game and looking at how it interacts with the most recent NBA game, we decided to then look at gender roles. The text of Coakley defines gender roles as interrelated ideas and beliefs that are widely used to define masculinity and femininity, identify people as male or female, evaluate forms of sexual expression, and organize social relationships. So essentially, the text defines gender roles as what is considered masculine and or feminine by society. For the Lynx versus Sparks WNBA game, you will find female announcers, female coaches, and obviously female players. These women are breaking gender roles by showing that they can play in an NBA just like their male counterparts.
Some questions to ponder are, how is orthodox gender ideology pressed upon the participants of the WNBA and NBA in forms of media, marketing, and exposure? Why is there such a clear distinction in the titles of professional sports, such as the WNBA and NBA? And what effects, if any, would it have on our society if the future of the NBA adopted the name MNBA? Why is it difficult for men to watch a women's sport without it being degrading to the athletes? An example is the Legends Football League.